Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, is predicting that we are going back to 2007-2008, the Great Recession, if not the Great Depression. But this time, he's actually on to something. He regularly predicts terrible circumstances for the US economy, but again, I think as someone who is a financial planner that can help you build confidence, clarity, and momentum, I've got a degree in economics, and he has my attention for the right reasons and in some cases the wrong reasons, because I don't want us to go into this situation. But exactly what did he say? What parts of this make sense and what part of this kind of goes off of the rails? Let's first start off with what he said, and then I'm going to break down his argument in 3 parts. All right, so first, let's go ahead and put up his tweet here on the screen. You can read it in full. I'm just going to essentially break it down. It comes down to 2 pieces. Number 1, we got the war in Iran. As long as there's a war, and there's a typo here, so we know he wrote it as opposed to AI, but essentially, as long as there is a war in Iran, prices are going to go up. It's going to restrict oil. All right, that's number 1. Number 2, we are in debt as a country, as the United States. This is an international channel. We're about $39 trillion, according to him, in debt. As long as we are continuously in debt and we keep printing money, the US dollar is going to continue to lose value. His solution is to do what? Buy gold, silver, Ethereum, and Bitcoin. Those are his solutions. Now, here is where we need to break down his argument and see, for us as investors, sane investors, sane investors, and someone who is trained to do this, trained to give people advice. Now, for me to give you specific advice, you need to book a call with me, buildingbread.com/callkev, because this is general, right? Just general, right? You need specific advice. I need to talk to you specifically. But in either case, we need to break down number 1. Is the economy actually going off a cliff? 2, does it make sense for you to put money in any of the 4 categories that he brought up? And if so, how much in each of those categories? So that is the 2 to 3 layers that we need to talk about. So number 1, where is the economy? What's happening there? Are we going into the Great Recession or Great Depression again? I would have to say no. But just because we're not going back to 2008 doesn't mean that things are good now. There were several recessions in history that were not great, but it doesn't mean that you have to go to the worst piece of history, though that does get the most clicks. Okay, that is true. The reason why I say that is because of this. A Great Recession, the unemployment rate was double digits. The unemployment rate is not double digits now, but it's not good. Even though the unemployment rate can improve, it does not mean that your salary gets you back to where you were. And the other piece of it is, even if you were to get a job, that doesn't mean that the prices were what they used to be. For example, right? Personal example, I was making 6 figures. So let's just say I was making exactly 100,000, right? I got laid off. Let's say I get a job and I get the exact same $100,000 salary. Prices are not what they used to be. Today's price is not what yesterday's price was. So I can say, yay, I got a job. I'm right back at 6 figures. I'm back in the club, except that gas is now $4 a gallon. Groceries are now up 20%. The coffee that I need to wake up and do my job in the morning is now $5 as opposed to $2. So $100,000 doesn't get me as far as I used to. I could still be struggling, even though, or what used to be fine, now it's borderline. Now it's struggling. Now it doesn't get me where it used to get me. And that is now an issue. And it was an issue before, because we know in 2022, we had 9% inflation. That was the highest we had seen in nearly 40 years. So he does have a point that we could be sliding into a bad place, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to the worst place. We also know when it comes to where the economy is, yes, we did get some decent, I'll put that in air quotes, decent numbers in terms of, yes, the stock market has hit all-time highs recently. It could be by the time you're watching this video. I can't predict where the market is going. We saw GDP numbers, those were solid. Those can also be revised. We'll see where that goes. But we have what is called a K-shaped economy. I've mentioned this on my newsletter. Go to buildingbread.com/news. It's free. You are missing out on some valuable nuggets inside of that newsletter. In either case though, the K-shaped economy is basically saying you have the letter K, as if this is the Sesame Street, but you have the upper tier where the top 10% of income earners are driving 2/3 of the economy. Okay, they are driving the majority of the spending. Okay, so they are the ones driving the bus. They're actually driving half of the spending in the U.S. and consumer spending is 2/3 of the economy. So that's the exact stat there. So think about it. Only 10% of income earners are driving half of U.S. spending, and spending is 2/3 of the economy. Top 10% of income earners, that's not a whole lot of people. That means that the bottom half, right, or really 90% of income earners, they're struggling right now with gas prices, daycare, it could be rent, mortgage, whatever it is. That's not a good scenario. And if we run into a true recession where unemployment does spike, or we continue to see tariffs, we continue to see oil prices spike, we could be in a much worse situation. 2008, I'm not sure, but maybe there's a spot in the 80s or in the 70s that could be much worse than where we are. So there are some points made. Now, with that, is Bitcoin, Ethereum, gold, or silver the right answer? Let's first cross off Ethereum. No. I don't care what it is. I don't think Ethereum is going to be the answer for anything. I'm not going to say forever, but just no. Next. Let's move over to gold. Yes, I do think gold is an answer. I do think it is an answer. Now, his whole philosophy is you need to go back to real money, because if all of society collapsed, people are going to grab onto gold. Maybe yes, maybe not. There are a lot of people who kind of go to this doomsday scenario. That's not where I'm going to go. But gold does tend to have value in times of chaos, which is what we've been in the last year or so. The charts do confirm this. You can go and see how gold has done over the last year, over the last 6 months. Probably over the last 18 months, you have seen how gold has done. That is a fact. So yes, I do think it makes sense to own some gold. How much gold you have, totally up to you. I'm comfortable with about 5%, 7% if you want to be really aggressive. I own a tiny bit of gold. I'll admit I probably need to own a bit more. I'm fine with gold. Should you own physical gold as opposed to a gold ETF? There are pros and cons. There are pros and cons. I've met with gold experts. I met with an economist who specifically teaches and preaches about gold. And the philosophy there is that you need to own physical gold. It needs to be somewhere in your house. I have some issues with that. I'm willing to perhaps invite that person on the channel, and we'll see if we're going to have that interview inside the members only or something like that. We'll see. But I have some questions, because that also opens you up to a lot of risk. How do you store the gold? Are you putting it in a safe? What happens? Do you need to get insured? There's a lot of questions there. You can also have a gold IRA. I talked about that before. So gold, yes. Ethereum, no. All right, so those two things are offsetting. What about silver? We have some silver fans in the comments. I do read those comments. In terms of totality, like if I were to zoom out and see how silver was doing, we'll see. We'll see. I will say though, silver is volatile, but there's opportunity in silver. There's a lot of opportunity in silver. For me, I don't like the volatility, but there is a lot of opportunity in silver. If you are a short-term trader, which is not my cup of tea, but there is opportunity there. Silver is on the borderline. I would say yes, but depends on what type of volatility you are okay with and how you do it. If you are buying physical silver, different, right? If you are buying a silver ETF or something like that, be careful. If 5% is my limit for gold, then I would cut that in half if I'm doing it for silver, just because of the volatility. But silver, I mean, I'm not necessarily mad at that, okay? Then that leaves us with Bitcoin. I don't think Bitcoin makes sense for his theory, okay? Can you invest in Bitcoin? I still hold Bitcoin, okay? So if you want to invest in it, you can copy and paste my exact same argument with gold. For me, no more than 5%. However, if your theory is if everything falls apart and society starts to fade, is Bitcoin going to be as valuable? His thing is there are only going to be, 21 million Bitcoin or whatever it's going to be, because it is finite, unlike the US dollar, we're going to continue printing for as long as the country exists, that is going to retain its value. I understand that logic. However, I'm not sure if, if society falls apart, are we really going to care about this computer code as much as you think we will? That's the thing. We've seen cases where because of inflation, it was supposed to be good, and it has. I've made this case many a times before. There are, video games, for example, there were only a certain amount of copies that were in existence, and they don't sell the way we expected them to. Trading cards, it's the exact same thing, but it's digital. I am not entirely sure. I'm not putting it in the ETH category, but I'm putting it on the borderline, but on the other side of silver, where if you are in a doomsday scenario, I'm not banking on Bitcoin just because we just haven't seen it perform the way that we expect it to in certain scenarios. Okay, in certain scenarios. Do you want to own it for long term and see what happens? Cool. I'm not saying no. What I'm saying is I don't think that or anybody knows, is it supposed to perform the exact same way that we know that silver performs, volatile, or that we know gold performs, does well in chaotic times. Bitcoin is a question mark. We do not know how it performs in chaos. We do not know how it performs in inflation. It doesn't perform the way we expect it to. We cannot bank on that. And we've seen it time and time and time again. All of last year, or earlier this year and parts of last year, the market was doing well and Bitcoin was falling apart. It didn't make sense, and we never know why. And now for a bit it was doing well. We don't know. So I'm just investing tiny bits and just holding on to it, and we'll see what happens, because we saw what happened several years ago and it did well if you bought early. But to just hold on to it because I think the market is going to crash, people are going to come back to Bitcoin, I don't really know, because the other piece of it is not a great store of value. No one is going to say, I'm going to put money into Bitcoin, I'm putting $100 in here, and I'm going to wake up tomorrow and it's still going to be $100. You can't trust that, because you don't want to put $100 into something, you wake up and it's worth so much less. That's the reason why people don't have tens of thousands of dollars in their mattress, because of basic inflation. Okay, I got $100 worth of gold, or a gold bar is still gonna be a gold bar. I put $100 in Bitcoin and it might be 50 tomorrow. And it could be very, very quick that it can drop in value. I can't do that. Right, we can't, that's why it's not as useful as we once thought it was, or as the experts thought it was. So we gotta figure out what it's used for and how we want to put it in our portfolio, and that's my viewpoint on it. But in all, he does have a point. We are in chaotic times, and in those times you do need to find investments that make sense for your portfolio. See if gold makes sense. See if you want to touch silver, but see how it has performed. But if you want to know other stocks that make sense, I did have a few AI stocks that you probably have not considered. If you want to see what those stocks were, check out this video right here.